Welcome everyone back to PommyInOz. Hope we're all doing really well. It's the preview time. We've got Carlton versus Adelaide. A really big game for us personally. And it's weird. Do you know what I mean? It feels like last time we went to AO, which it was actually the last time we went to AO to play them. It was the Bryce Gibbs farewell game. Very similar position in the terms of that was probably... if you're really loose by the sense of maths, there was still a mathematical chance of playing finals. This time, Carlton have got it all in their own hands, and really this win is the win away from really sewing it up when you look at the ladder and making it a nice cruisy run home where you start thinking about bigger picture, top four. Adelaide, on the other hand, a little bit of a mixed year this year, and a bit like the GWS game when we went into that one. 5 wins, 12 losses, 16th on the ladder, a percentage of 83.8. 3 in a row they've lost. Obviously, they are back at the AO last week. Obviously, at the SCG, the Swans put them to sword quite convincingly. There's been a few happy moments, though. Sam Berry's shown a little bit for them. Rochelle in the early part of the year as well. It's really a formative year for the Crows, and they're kind of in that rock and a hard place. Injuries have killed them. You know, Sloan went very early. It would have been interesting to see with his influence in the midfield, just as we've seen with teams like Collingwood, having some senior figures around the midfield really helps. Very interesting though, do you know what I mean? Obviously they do get hit out dominance, and from that they do get clearances. This is the number 3 and number 2 hit outside in the comp and clearance side respectively. Not a strong kicking marking side, but genuinely what they're looking for is very fast, stun and run type goals. Carlton, on the other hand, the season has been pretty spectacular, hasn't it? It's why I've got a big beaming smile on my face. 11-6. They've got an assured game plan last week against the Giants. They really did put on a show in the last quarter, showing very control and resilience. And Carlton will be going into this game with really a sense of the time is now. Do you know what I mean? They'll be really going in with that sense of this is it really. This is what the rebuild has been building up to. 5-13, like we said, for Adelaide. Carlton, obviously 12-6. There's a gap, as I keep saying. There's a gap between the best and the worst. And think of it as 6 teams' increments. Carlton will be looking at this going, if we play our way, we play our system, we dictate, we win this game. And I have no doubt they will. But very polar opposites in the ladder and in the season. Selection then is going to be interesting. Carlton are starting to get that cavalry returning. And it has felt, as a fan, I don't know what you guys and girls at home think. I've been thinking along the way that this is really the moments where I feel a bit safer. It's about getting through them injury periods. And they've got through the injury periods exceptionally well. As for selection, I do expect Mark Pitternet to come in. And I do expect Matty Owens to come straight in as well. I think Carlton have missed that tackle pressure. And I do think it's harsh, but I do think to accommodate them, they'll play Honey and Motlop will leave the team. Both young lads, both have got things to work on. Honey probably stiff. Motlop has had his moments too. I just think that forward pressure will look at that. They have been floating Fish and Cottrell a lot at high half forward as well, which alleviates that Honey Motlop problem. And they have really lacked someone playing in that forward half of the ground to accommodate Mr. Durden. He has looked lost at times, and I think he plays a lot better with Mr. Owens. I think that suits a lot of things. We know that they have got a transitional threat, so that is something that Carlton will be looking to really dominate in and really forcing that entries in there. Carlton, obviously, with Mitch McGovern back, are a threat on the counter, as proven last week, putting on over 50 points in turnover. So that forward 50 just adds another layer to an already strong forward 50 side, tackle pressure-wise. Rochelle and Haitley, I expect to come in. For them, I expect him to get over his initial injury. And I do expect McHenry, and I wouldn't be surprised to see McAdam drop out. I think the gentleman in your picture there, Wayne Milrera, I think he'll keep it there, and I think they'll look to see if they can catch Carlton on the counter, knowing that is probably a susceptible area of Carlton that they can maybe focus on. Keys to winning then. Well, for Adelaide, what they've got to do is that they're going to try and really make that clearance dominance tell. And that is a really interesting thing. We know last week people have been saying quite incorrectly Carlton's midfield gets dominated. Depends what you define. If you're looking at midfield dominance in the terms of clearances, 5 isn't really a big loss. However, what I will say though is Carlton put on a staggering 51 points from stoppage and clearances, and that is huge, even though they lost by 7. And that is an area that Adelaide will need to, 1, stifle and make sure that doesn't happen, but 2, really gain a foothold on what they are used to. They are used to clearances, and it's going to become a lot down to Riley O'Brien. How does PeterV negate that? In my opinion, and it may be a biased opinion, I actually think PeterV is a better ruckman anyway, and I think that body. But that's going to be one of the ways they have to. We know how to beat Carlton. You've got to try and take that space away, but it's can you take it away from long enough? That's the wonderful thing about this football club, is their ability to outrun sides. They do run them into the ground. Transition, obviously, is an area where you've got players like Dawson and Libbojrjr there who float across wing, midfield, down the back. They've got a real flux. Obviously, Tom Doherty has just been, I've just got the text there, announced that he may be out, which will make it very interesting of what they do in their team selection as well. They will obviously bring in someone to replace that. It's going to be interesting to see. Is that a Butts? Probably is. Jordan Butts will probably come in. And it's going to be a very interesting time there. But that is obviously what they're going to be looking for. They're going to be looking to be able to get the transition. They know that Carlton are going to have a lot of the ball. And they know that Carlton are going to enter 50. So they've got to really focus on that transition, soaking up pressure, making it a little bit difficult. For Carlton, on the other hand, it's a very simple key to winning. It's do what you do well. I'm expecting to see a lot of... Last week, we saw a real high number of post-clearance gets. 91 to 65 in post-clearance possessions, and that is huge. That is something that Dimmer focused on a lot, something that Clarkson focused on, and it's something that shows you really your ability to get away from shit, which is going to be really important, because that doesn't matter if you win or lose. If you have high numbers there, you are really spreading the play and really controlling it. Carlton obviously have 2 massive strings to their bow in Charlie Curnow and Harry Mackay. So it's really focusing on that. I want to see a little bit this week as well. We've always in there of really locking that in. We know that last week as well, 30 plus of them points were from forward half stoppages, something that Carlton have worked really hard in the last 4 weeks. Very understated. And that'll be something that Carlton want to do, you know, really making sure that them inside 50s are maximised to their capabilities. What will happen if... Well, I mean, if their transition game goes, Carlton can get caught on the back, and that's going to be interesting, because Carlton's strength is their ability to put on scores very quickly and then work their way around it. They're still a bit wet behind the ears, and it's getting better. You saw it last week, and one thing that I actually was really impressed about last week is they learnt fuck all from the Eagles game. Do you know what I mean? You can beat up someone that's not fighting you back, and you're not going to learn anything, but... They stuck to their task at hand. They did the right things. And it's something that you hear in boxing a lot when a very good prospect goes 12 rounds. And you kind of get the feeling that he could have knocked him out. You want to learn the right habits. And Carlton really did attack in the 4th quarter with a sense of defence in mind. Because obviously not every team is going to bend over like Geelong, GWS, and let you do that. Geelong out there, Melbourne out there, Demons out there. Do you know what I mean? Brisbane Lions, Dogs. These sides will fight you back. So you've got to be always wary. So this is going to be another thing here that obviously Carlton have got to be wary of being caught in that transition, caught on the overlap. That is going to be a primary focus on them. And it's also going to be a primary focus on getting them clearances. We know that they're a very good clearance side. And that is a fear for Carlton, that their early entries, that's where they do very good jobs on early entries. On the flip side, though, Carlton will like the fact that they get a lot of midfield turnovers. Last week, there was a lot of turnovers in the midfield from clearances. Interesting enough, 7 of their clearances were intercepted, which is the difference. So that is something that Carlton will be looking at and going, you know what? We're a strong side behind the ball. So that is what Carlton will be. If Adelaide allow that to happen and Carlton get clearance dominance, this could be messy. This could be really messy. I can't see a perceivable way Carlton don't win this. But that is going to be the area there of how close can it get? How squeaky bum time? And there is an element I want to talk about of pressure to make finals. This has been the conversation at this football club for since we last made it. So you're going back a good decade and a bit. And that is going to be there. If it gets tight in the third quarter, how will Carlton react, knowing that this is probably the door to the promised land? If, though, like I say, Adelaide don't ascertain that space, they let Carlton get them post-clearance possessions, Carlton look to go out wide, game over. Game over. And I really do think that Carlton's midfield is too big, too strong to even do this. My prediction then, Carlton by... I'm going to go with Carlton by 42. I think this will be a resounding win. I think Carlton are just too strong at the moment, too well drilled. And I think with the personnel coming in, it adds another layer. And it will dispel that myth because this is a very good hit-out clearance side. I think Carlton will win that battle. And I think that will be too much. As for Adelaide, though, best of luck for the rest of the year. Do you know what I mean? They'll be back. I think in the trade season, they'll be quite active. But this is a good one. Make sure you get down there. Make sure you like and subscribe as well. Staggering at the moment. It's getting better, but 41.1% of you aren't. So please make sure you do that. And until next time, Pom out.